Hi, everybody. This is Will again. You might already see from the title of this episode that this is a preview of episode 11. It is not the full episode. Apologies for having so many mix-ups with my production timeline, especially after I had just had the little snafu being caught up in the Neom International Airport. Parenthetically, if anybody knows the whereabouts of the internet personality known as Ebbers from Sorted Foods, please call the toll-free number that has been advertised. He's not in trouble. The authorities would just like to ask him a few questions. If you are a Vancouver resident, no doubt you know that there has been a spate of non-COVID respiratory illnesses floating in the air all over the city. There's actually several going on at the same time. Basically, if you take a list at all of the diseases that your COVID shot and your yearly flu shot cover, basically every disease that's not on that list is currently in the air right now. And, your boy caught one of them. A bit of advice to my listeners, coughing your guts out and spending most of Christmas and all of Boxing Day trying to sleep is not a recommended experience. Especially when you have a podcast and all of that coughing actually damages your vocal cords. You know how when you have a phone call and you're going through a tunnel and then your voice starts cutting in and out, in and out? That was basically what my voice sounded like in real life for about a week. I'm basically recovered now. I'm still coughing here and there. My voice is about 90% back. However, there is a little bit of a complication. Part of my recovery involves taking an inhalable steroid. I've actually got the inhaler right here with me. It's a Nantworks LLC device, so it's a Michelle Chan special, more or less.
And there's been some side effects that have made recording a little bit difficult. You know, normally I would go ahead and just record anyway. This voice has done a lot for my sense of personal masculinity. On top of that, I've been getting some nice big money orders from people who run crime documentaries, and they're looking for people to voice folks who have witnessed mob crimes, stuff like that. But as for recording episodes of Infinite Danger, that's been a little bit hamstrung. This episode, I'd been planning on doing like a 15-minute Alvin and the Chipmunks impression. It was pretty plot critical, but I think I might have to cancel that now. I'm very sorry about that. So while I wait for this inhaler prescription to run out, I'm going to upload another short preview of this episode of Infinite Danger. I think it's going to be a good one. There's a lot of interesting people in this show, and I think you'll like it. I'll see you soon. You guys stay safe. Fisherman's Friend is not a sufficient substitute for antibiotics. Pro tip. At the very least, if you do get sick, try and see if your doctor will prescribe an inhaler other than the Michelle Chan special. I'll talk to you soon.
Danger.
The name, Dr. Richard Kemble.
Danger.
The destination, Death Row State Prison. The irony, Richard Kemble is innocent. Proved guilty, what Richard Kemble could not prove was that moments before discovering his murdered wife's body, he saw a one-armed man running from the vicinity of his home. Richard Kemble ponders his fate as he looks at the world for the last time and sees only darkness. But in that darkness, fate moves its huge hand.
Danger Bay, Episode 11, Grace Under Pressure, production code 1-010. Now, this is exactly what a Danger Bay fan is after. We've got all these things, the cowboy episode, the super spy episode, But what you're really after in Danger Bay is a Dr. George Dunbar episode.
Who did that? Those windows cost $35.
A Hagen Beggs episode. Not to mention, it's a romantic lead Hagen Beggs episode. It's exactly what the 18 to 35 demo needs, a romance between two people around 50 plus. Granted, as an episode that's basically a romance, having it star Hagen Beggs here in some sort of a chaste and family-friendly romance, it's a little uncanny for the people who are in the know, because in reality, Hagen Beggs had sex with like about 45 different women a year. Of course, this was revealed to us via one of Hagen Beggs' many rap singles, so some sort of bravado exaggeration is to be expected in that genre. Like, it was written as some sort of wordplay, 45 women, Colt 45. I've got two 45s around my waist every day. If you listen to the mixtape, it's actually quite brilliant. This is another Alan Eastman directed episode. It was written by John Dugan. John Dugan was last seen writing the cowboy episode of Danger Bay. We've gone over Eastman's resume before, but there are some things that I didn't get around to. Something that sets Alan Eastman apart from a lot of the other early Danger Bay directors is that he has a film pedigree, not just television. He has a lot more theatrical releases under his belt. There are actually a good few Canadian actors that are well known that have had Alan Eastman as their first director. He directed Crazy Moon, which isn't that massive of a movie, yet it was one of Kiefer Sutherland's first starring roles.
It's a story of first love with all its promise. Crazy Moon, starring Kiefer Sutherland and Vanessa Vaughn.
Are you deaf? Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's Crazy Moon. Warehouse ship date February 24th. Order close date February 8th.
He also directed a movie called A Sweeter Song, which is a sex comedy, which isn't that well known, apart from the fact that Nick Mancuso was in it.
You vermin! You can't even earn your own living!
Why are you doing this to me?
So really, both films are like an equal pedigree. Alan Eastman's choice of movies to direct can only be described what I would call like omnidirectional. On one side of the spectrum, he directed a movie called Henry Ford, the Man and the Machine.
He was the richest man alive. But money could never protect him from the attacks most say he deserved.
And I mean, to be fair, it is critical of Henry Ford quite a bit, but it tends to focus more on the fact that he was a bad dad and was mean to his employees, and sort of leaps over the fascism stuff.
Became a household name and tried to change the world around him.
I haven't seen all of it, but I don't think there's a scene where he's got a picture of himself and Hitler on his desk.
Cliff Robertson of Spider-Man and Hope Lang of Just Cause and Clear and Present Danger. Star in Ford, the Man and the Machine.
Then on the totally opposite side of the spectrum, Alan Eastman works for a Canadian Yugoslavian co-production as a director for a film about a war orphan in World War II Eastern Europe, which is called The War Boy. And I mean, honestly, if you said to me, this movie is a Canadian Yugoslav co-production, that is the level of dour that I am expecting out of that kind of movie. An early first stab at the come-and-see exploitation genre, if you will. So what else is there to say about Alan Eastman's career? He directed an episode of an Outer Limits reboot where the main character is given access to a multiverse of different versions of himself, and he gets tasked with killing one of them. So it's basically a progenitor of BioShock Infinite, except there's much less people looking directly at the camera and saying racism goes both ways. So I mean, this episode didn't really go anywhere. I mean, racism going both ways, that's the juice. That's the thing that makes that premise tick.
I made myself who I am. I made myself a man.
There is a lot that I didn't say off the bat when I was talking about John Dugan. I think the only thing that I said was that he wrote a bunch of episodes of cowboy shows, like he wrote an episode of Bonanza and things like that. But he does have a larger career outside of that. He had a somewhat inauspicious start in the television industry. He worked on the Purex summer specials. That's right, Purex, the toilet paper company, was sponsoring a bunch of hour-long TV dramas. These toilet paper TV dramas basically existed to fill out content-light summer schedules. His episode was titled Child in Danger. This title was actually the result of a change at the last minute, because the names on all of the teleplays just say Child Molester, John Dugan's Child Molester. The script for Child Molester by John Dugan was in co-production for such a good long stretch of time before anybody said, you know, John, I'm reading this script, maybe you want to call this something else once it's on television. He really struck it big, though, when he did a teleplay for the series called Run for Your Life.
You have at least 9 months left, perhaps as much as 18.
The first doctor gave me from 1 to 2 years.
I hope he's right. What are you going to do?
Well, I have no family. Haven't taken a day off since law school. Guess I'll try to squeeze 30 years of living into 1 or 2.
Run for Your Life is basically a spiritual sequel to The Fugitive, made by the same guy who made The Fugitive, and it had Ben Gazzara as the lead. This show actually had a backdoor pilot in an episode of Kraft Suspense Theater. Yes, that's Kraft, the macaroni company. We've got toilet paper TV, we've got macaroni TV. This was just what old television was like. Like The Fugitive, Ben Gazzara is always on the run in every episode of Run for Your Life, but instead of this being a show about a guy looking for his wife's true killer, it's about a wealthy lawyer who finds out he's got 18 months to live tops. So what does he do with this information? Does he make good with his family? Does he go and find love? Does he write that memoir that he always wanted to do? No, he decides to get involved in international spy intrigue for kicks. So every episode he's getting into some big adventure for no other reason other than, well, clock's ticking. The plot synopses for these episodes involve him toppling dictatorships, getting involved in international spy intrigues, fighting organized crime kingpins in Monte Carlo, and who's the hero behind it all? You know, it's Dying Man. I do kind of grin at the concept of Run for Your Life, because when The Fugitive was a big hit, everybody told the creator, whose name was Roy Huggins, you know, Roy, it's an exciting show, but the moment this guy actually succeeds in catching the one-armed man, the show's basically over. But the longer it takes to catch him, the more times the one-armed man slips his grasp yet again, you'll start straining the audience's credulity. Huggins not only refused to learn a lesson from this, but actually unlearned several prior lessons. You're complaining it's taking too long for this show to reach its predetermined conclusion? Well, how's this, you sons of bitches? I'm gonna make a show where a guy has 18 months to live, max. It'll be on the air for 3 years. Strains credulity, my ass. The second season premiere will have a plot line where he blacks out for 6 months, so there's even less time on the clock. The mutability of time in television is a pretty common issue. It's sort of reminiscent of the Canadian television show from 1975 titled Bomb Squad. It was inspired by The Fugitive, and the premise was that over the entire show, the main character would be defusing one single bomb. It was sort of a victim of its own success. The show went on for about 20 years. I mean, they were able to stretch out the plot a little bit for a little while. I mean, you know, there's all those bomb disposal scenes in movies where, you know, the bomb disposal guy, he's like pouring with sweat as he cuts every single wire bit by bit, minute by minute. Bomb Squad got to the point where he was being told to cut 3 wires, and that would mean about 3 episodes. Things got especially difficult once the show was moving into the 90s. They realized that, well, it's still supposed to be 1975 in this show, so they enacted all of these building codes. All these buildings have to be the same. None of you people going back and forth on this camera, you can't be wearing any grunge aesthetic stuff. All the outfits have to be exactly the same. It is 1975. I mean, this show basically kept the flared pants market alive in Canada for another 20 years. Just so long as the protagonist didn't defuse that bomb, it would be 1975 forever. I think the show really started to lose its popularity after around like the 10-year mark. There was a infamous plot twist that happened where the main guy, after he cut all those wires and fiddled with all of these timers for about 10 years in real time, it turned out that this was just a decoy. The real bomb was a few blocks away. that wasn't necessarily the thing that did the show in, per se, but when the protagonist had to drive 8 blocks to get to the real bomb location, and it took about 10 one-hour episodes to do it, that's when people's interest started to lag.